Mr. Miles Young, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Aziz, Mr. President Pervez, Mr. Secretary General Majib. Oh, and by the way, I think you may be a little bit old to get admission as a student in Oxford now, but I will certainly work on an honorary fellowship for you. It's a great pleasure to return to Pakistan after so long and to meet new friends and also to see old ones. I'm speaking today wearing three hats, as the Secretary General has more or less indicated. The first is a former chairman of Ogilvy & Mather, where I was privileged to create a joint venture here with Interflow in Pakistan. And that gave me some experience of the power, but also the limitations of English as a global language. I learned, for instance, that the UK and US are really two countries divided by a common language. The second is the head of an Oxford college, new college, now relishing the world of higher education. And the third and most important for today, of course, is chair of the English-speaking union. In thinking about the title that I was given, the role of the English language as promoter of peace, quite a challenging title, Aziz. I want first to give a view of or from Oxford. In many, if not all of the global rankings, Oxford University is ranked as the leading university in the world. We are not huge, only 26,000 students, roughly divided 50-50 between undergraduates and postgraduates. And about 50% of that student body, in fact 47%, are foreign citizens, 23% undergraduates, but 67% of postgraduates from 170 countries. But our relatively small numbers compared to a Chinese university, for instance, or a Mexican university, does pack a punch. And when 5 years ago we sought to quantify the university's impact on the UK economy, we found that we contributed a total of £15.7 billion. So for every £1 invested in Oxford research, we could show a return of £10.30. One aspect of that is Oxford Scientific Enterprises, a joint venture with the university, which has had a portfolio of £2 million, focused on science, life science, deep technology, and health technology. We're a top 5 biomedical institution in the world, leaders in energy, anti-carbon research, leaders in customized robotic technology, and in AI applications across a whole range of disciplines. So we're very far from that fusty image, which I think sometimes is evoked by the word Oxford. But what makes Oxford unique is two things. First, the teaching system, a tutorial-based system. So an undergraduate has a weekly engagement, 2 or 3 to 1 tutor, with a tutor in which their work is interrogated and defended. This is relationship-based teaching through dialogue, very opposite of teaching through a lecture or even a class. Our lectures and classes are complementary. They are not the mainstream. And the evidence of neuroscience is that more engaged teaching encourages better learning. It's as simple as that. And secondly, all students, including research graduates, are housed in colleges like mine. The college is a home, a community, a family. My own comprises only around 750 students. I know them, I see them, I encourage them. I occasionally have to chastise them. But wherever they come from, they emerge empowered by the English language and become part of a global community. There are 350,000 of them in 90 countries. And at Oxford we have a very specific mission for the English language, because of course we publish the accepted authority on that language, the Oxford English Dictionary, to which 15,000 new definitions are added each year. The Oxford University Press, so strong here in Pakistan, is the engine of a community of English teachers worldwide. English encompasses some 400 million native speakers, but some 1.5 to 2 billion speakers. Where countries gave up in English altogether, as Sri Lanka did in the 1960s, their leverage on the global economy has become weaker. With my third hat, my ESU hat, I'm pleased that our fastest growing numbers are in new markets such as China, or closer here to Kazakhstan, and since I see the Japanese Consul General, Your Excellency, we have a very strong chapter in Japan. So the view of Oxford might be seen as rosy, but 25 years after the internet revolution, I think it's time to express some caution. Although I am very admiring of what our university and many others have done to increase the role of STEM, which absolutely needed to be done, I worry if we, even unknowingly, submit to the rules of a zero-sum game where only technology is inevitably useful and where all technology is uniformly good. I'm not sure that black and white picture is a very helpful or constructive one. So I have some reservations, which I think can still be regarded as unconventional wisdom in a way, because I don't think they're widely accepted, but they are supported by evidence which is beginning to emerge. They all have an impact not just on the acquisition of technical English skills, but on what you feel able or confident to do with those skills. The first of these is the impact of social media. When I teased Aziz the day before yesterday that he had all the instincts of a social media native, he's brilliant at it, he replied, well, it's free. My answer is that not everything that's free is necessarily good or invariably good. That little devil, the mobile phone, is now exposed in academic research as a major cause, not a correlation, but a cause of youthful disturbance. What has happened is a substitution of a play-based childhood, involving sometimes risks being taken in play activities, by a phone-based childhood, where there is very little real conversation, and the only risk is how long you spend on the phone, which reduces the time spent on sleep, on play, and on in-person socializing. Kids now just don't learn the art of speaking. If you have not read it, I recommend Jonathan Haidt's and Greg Lukianoff's The Coddling of the American Mind, based on their research on American teenage girls. It explodes the previously held consensus, actually based on, I hate to say, Oxford research, which they discredit to show the extent to which social media is creating directly bad mental health outcomes. Persistent helplessness and social distance can now be seen in very large numbers in measured surveys, in some cases amongst the majority. This recognition is now creeping into the public domain. You may be aware that the Australian government is seeking to introduce legislation to the federal parliament later this year to restrict children altogether from certain digital platforms, including social media, possibly up to the age of 16. Of course, there are many practical issues here. How do you verify ages? How do you enforce compliance from operators? But this situation is compounded by the fallacies which have accompanied mental health. It's been easy to say, for instance, in my case, that around 20% of my students have mental health issues. But what does that mean? Recently, we are becoming clearer in distinguishing between mild and clinical symptoms, and being more cautious not to medicalize them all. But what seems to be clear is that the impacts of social media in terms of non-clinical mental health issues extends way beyond that 20%. And it is also related to speaking skills, and that is in turn related to a crisis of confidence. In our university, there is a phrase that students use where they say they're suffering from imposter syndrome. It means they doubt whether they really should be there with us. That is nothing more than an expression of lack of confidence. The English-speaking Union has recently done research in the UK which shows that 52% of parents with 5 to 9-year-old kids feel their kid is struggling to make friends, real friends, because they lack self-confidence in speaking to others. And 47% of 10 to 17-year-olds, 63% of 16 to 24-year-olds say that they often find it a struggle to make friends. 71% of 16 to 24-year-olds believe that their lack of confidence in expressing themselves is what is holding them back. Meanwhile, previously held orthodoxies in teaching are starting to be questioned. Chief of these is the belief that the elevation of thinking skills at the expense of knowledge skills is all important. Of course, critical thinking is the key output of an excellent education. But for decades now, educators have advocated teaching it as a generic skill, teaching it. Independent from subject content. So knowledge has been derogated. But new research and the failure of curricula in countries as different as Scotland, Sweden and Quebec show that you can't teach skills directly. Thinking requires knowledge. Why this is so important is that knowledge itself risks being marginalized through being diluted by the search functions of the search engines or by the shortcuts of AI. Knowledge on demand. But increasing lack of knowledge as supply feeds the echo chamber of social media. We can view this almost under laboratory conditions in the US presidential campaigns today. False claims, dubious fact checks, elements of deep fake. Speaking has become asserting. It has become divorced from evidence, that is, knowledge, and it has become altogether separated from listening. At an international level, one can observe the same phenomena. They impose a new type of risk to peace in the world. The ESU was founded at a time of world crisis just after the First World War in 1918, when the dreadful cost of war was crystal clear. Our mission today is the same as it was then, to help create a world where people are able to communicate skillfully and confidently, using the English language as a shared tool, a bridge to build international friendships. It is premised on an ability to develop an opinion based on knowledge, rather than just the voices which shout loudest. It promotes the chance to build understanding of and respect for other people's views, and the ability to see the value of difference in cultures. Increasingly, we fervently hope that internationally, where nations give up the work of shouting to each other and simply drawing lines, we can be a role model for the benefit of dialogue and listening. Now, the English language cannot in itself create peace, but what it can do is to encourage peace-loving by celebrating that dialogue and debate, but also teaching people how to do those things. Critical to this is elevating the concept of oracy, a strange English word, meaning speaking ability. Literacy we're all familiar with, writing ability. Numeracy, arithmetical ability. But the third sister, the neglected sister, is oracy. The other two are recognized concepts and they're embedded in curricula. Oracy is not. We are trying to get it into the new revised national curriculum in the UK, but it is an uphill struggle. In the UK, the ESU's Oracy in Action programme is delivered through primary schools, teaching kids how to debate, the role of preparation, of assembling and deploying knowledge, the role of listening, understanding the opponent's point of view, the value of disagreement, understanding that disagreement can take place with civility, and doing it in a competitive framework which can progress on to national and international competitions. And here in Pakistan, that's exactly what the ESU in Pakistan does, and does it so well. The most prestigious of these debating fora is the International Public Speaking Competition, where over 1 million people from around the world take part in regional and national competitions, and then in an international final. This year we brought together over 35 people from different countries to the final in Dartmouth House, our headquarters in London. Recent winners have come from Malaysia, China, and Mongolia. At every stage, the participants have the opportunity to build friendship and to gain understanding from people they would never otherwise have met, to find the confidence to define their voice and then to express it courteously. But those who improve their oracy skills are helped in another very critical and practical way. Debating skills are narrative skills. And I know from my first hat, my business hat, just how important the power to craft and present a narrative is. And many of you as business owners will also absolutely know that. I was recently involved in the generation of a report for the Arts and Humanities Research Council in the UK, which accessed the views of FTSE 100 CEOs who unequivocally saw narrative as a fundamental and indispensable part of business leadership, and one which was not being provided for by the bulk of the educational system. The relationship between oracy and narrative is umbilical. My friends, back in the 1970s as a schoolboy, I had my first experience of having to create a narrative for public consumption as part of an ESU competition. Today I am proud to be in Pakistan, where the ESU flourishes with 3 exceptional branches. The overall global narrative, of course, has changed from then to now. Now we live in a world wonderfully driven by technology, but where I think increasingly we have to recognize that some things are threatened. Play, the ability to form relationships, civil discourse, international concord. The echo chamber is full of shouting, slogans, fake news, all amplified by social technology. The newest generation isn't just enabled by technology, it is also disabled by it, increasingly lacking confidence and social skills. In this world, we, the ESU, are a reminder of the importance of the human, of human conversation and human friendship. Thank you.